All right, I see it is 1:01, so we'll go ahead and kick it off. I see we have a few today. I know I did switch the Zoom link, so I wonder if that might have caused some issues as well. Today is day 3. We did day 1, which is on leadership best practices on Tuesday, developing a thriving company culture yesterday, and then today is maximizing your retention. And you will have all 3 recordings, so I'll send these out most likely tomorrow morning. So you'll have these and you'll be able to have these going forward as well to keep and to go back to and to review. And with retention, it's really become a hot issue in the last couple of years. I think it was even becoming a bigger issue once the Great Resignation happened. That was in the beginning of 2021. A large part of that was because of COVID. It really took off, and that trend has continued. I was looking at stats earlier, and 53% of employers are still experiencing higher than usual turnover. And 64 of those percent say it's either going to stay high or it's going to increase going forward. So this is truly one of the top, even number 1 for a lot of organizations in terms of their executives and also their HR professionals. And really what this presentation is about creating an environment, creating a company that people want to be a part of, and specifically creating a culture that people want to be a part of. So retention is not about trying to convince people to stay or to beg people to stay. That's really, in my opinion, much more of an unhealthy perspective. A much healthier one is, how can we create a culture, an environment that people want to be a part of, that people want to stay in, that other people outside want to come in and be a part of as well. And that's what we'll talk about today. We'll talk about different strategies and really creating more of a comprehensive plan in order to create that. A little bit about my experience with retention. And as I mentioned the last couple of days, I've come from the sports world, and very much just like it is in the business world, an issue with retention in college athletics and college sports, retention and keeping players is one of the main challenges. And I coached at Bard College, and Bard had a lot of unique challenges. It wasn't as much of an athletic school. It had more of an arts type of feel to it. And certain people didn't feel quite comfortable at the school. So how can we create that within our own team to want to have these players stay within the program, even when certain things at the school may have been a challenge for them? So we really had to, myself and the other coach had to really brainstorm and put a lot of effort into creating this culture that people want to be a part of, that I'm going to go into today. And with that, let's go ahead and let's get into it. Oops, let me share. So the first thing is, what is employee retention? This is simply the ability of a company to keep its employees or to retain its employees. You can say it either way. And really simple, we'll go into more detail, but why is this important? Okay, people leave companies, so what? And the reason is because it really does affect the company, and affects the company in a number of areas. First one is the high cost associated with turnover. And for a lot of businesses, their primary concern, it is a business, is the bottom line, is making money. And turnover costs these companies a lot of money. One survey found it costs the companies about 1/3 of that person's salary. So if that person's salary is, let's say $100,000, it's costing them at least $33,000 just in terms of the search process, the hiring process, and then the training that goes into it. And that is a big process for the HR team and for the executives to take on. With some of these higher level managers, executives, that price is also a lot more. There's, that price can get up to $25, $50, $100, over $100,000 when you're talking about replacing an executive at a company. Second thing is loss in productivity and knowledge. When that person leaves, especially if they are good at their job, they've really built up their skills, you're losing that person's skills and also the knowledge they've acquired. Next thing, it affects the relationship that with the customers. So customers have built a relationship with someone at the company. That person leaves. Now a new person has to come in. They have to develop a new relationship with that customer or client. It can also affect both employee engagement and morale, especially if this becomes more of a bigger issue. One thing about retention, and especially turnover, is that it can be contagious. When 3 or 4 people at a company all of a sudden leave, other people starts to get in their own mind, okay, these people are leaving, these people are going on to different jobs. Maybe I should start looking as well. And retention often will become, or turnover will become contagious, and it'll also lower those two things of engagement and morale. The last thing is the company can get a reputation of not having a good culture, of people not wanting to stay. And what that leads to is fewer people applying for the job and less qualified people applying for the job. So as you can see, it really affects a number of different areas in addition to the bottom line and what it costs the company. So I'd love to get your feedback. I know we have a smaller group today, but what was the main reason or reasons that you left your previous job or jobs? So really looking for 1 or 2 of the primary reasons. And if you've left multiple jobs, you can put the primary 1 or 2 reasons for those different jobs as well. So you can list a few things. But I'll go over next the main reasons that people leave in general, but I'd love to get this group's take on why they have decided to leave a company or a certain job. So go ahead and type that in the chat, and I'll share that once people have started to put it in the chat. So Catherine says culture. Ashley also says toxic culture. Not an environment for growth, says Ivana. Relocation, says Yolanda. Mine were Anne Marie says company reorganization, which is a big one. COVID furloughed me and several others. So out of all of these so far, and if anybody has any others, feel free to put them in. The only one that is not preventable, and with retention, it's about, just like really in life, control the controllables. What are things within your control? What are things outside of your control? For instance, relocation, that's going to be outside of the company's control. Change of passion, which was one of the times I switched jobs, is also out of their control. Things such as culture, toxic culture, not an environment for growth, those all, even company reorganization, those all are preventable ones that can be worked on with the company and can be prevented. And Anne-Marie said company culture was in flux. Here are, when you look at line in terms of the reasons why people leave their jobs, you'll see different ones based on different surveys. This was a bigger survey done by Pew Research Center in 2022. So it was also recently, it was within the last year. And these were the top 10 that they had. And I also looked at 3 or 4 other studies just to compare different ones. Poor pay or just lack of compensation was pretty much on every list. On a couple of them, it was number 1. A couple others, it was a little bit more down the list, but on every single list, it was one of them. Lack of career advancement, just not having the ability to move up, was number 2 on this list and on most lists. Feeling disrespected at work, to me, this goes into both management and culture. So I'd really put it under those 2, probably more so even under the culture aspect. Childcare issues, that one is a big issue for a lot of people. Part of that is lack of compensation and lack of pay, not being able to afford the childcare. And it actually makes more sense for one of the parents to stay at home with the child just financially. But that is a big issue today. Lack of flexibility is on most lists. And this is one that COVID has certainly accelerated. People saw, okay, I'm working from home. I can do a good job from home. I like remote. I like hybrid. And if companies don't offer this flexibility, then I'm going to look elsewhere. Poor work-life balance was on a couple of lists. And this is number 6 here. And then burnout, to me, those two really go together. Poor work-life balance is going to lead to burnout. Bad manager or just something about leadership is on pretty much all the lists, and on a lot of the list, it's towards the top of the list. Finding a new purpose. This was kind of like mine in terms of new passion. Sometimes people interests change. Yeah, I decided, okay, I didn't necessarily want to keep coaching basketball. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to do something more leadership and culture focused and work more with business leaders. Other people might, take up an entrepreneur job in terms of they always wanted to be a writer, and then they go for it and they decide that they're going to leave and that they're going to focus on that passion or start some type of their own business. The last one is company culture issues. As I mentioned, that goes with the feeling disrespected at work. And on one of the other lists as well, company culture issues was actually number 1 listed. So on this one, it's a little bit lower, but on pretty much every list, company culture was on there. And on certain ones was even number 1 on the list. So how do you prevent this in terms of how do you increase retention? And the goal is not to get to 100% retention. You're going to have people leave, some of those for those reasons outside your control. It's just to get it to an appropriate number and a number you want. That might be 85 to 90%, depending on where you're at in your industry. These 6 strategies, and I combined a couple, are really part of the program that I recommend, the retention program I recommend in order to be able to keep people and to have people want to stay at the company. And I'm going to go really through each one of these in a good amount of detail coming up. And these are track your retention, effective leadership, for the culture, both healthy and purpose-driven. Then the compensation and benefits, and I put flexibility within that as well because I consider that a benefit. Effective hiring and onboarding, and then opportunities both for growth and for advancement. So let's take a look at these. First one is to track your retention, which a lot of companies actually don't do, which is surprising because it is such an important issue for companies. And specifically looking at your retention rate. Retention rate is the percentage of employees that you keep over a given period of time. So for instance, you can have the given period of time can be 1 year. Let's say 100 employees start at the beginning of the year on January 1st. At December 31st, at the end of those year, how many of those are still with the company? If you started with 100 and 80 of those remained at the company, your retention rate is 80%. And that's regardless of how many people you hired. Say you hired 25 people and now you have 105 people at the company. What you hired doesn't matter for this. It's just out of those that started, how many ended up. And with this, have a goal that you set. Your goal might be 85%. That's a pretty good retention rate over a lot of industries. And then also look at why are people leaving. And this is done really through exit interviews and through conversations. Is there a month where more people tend to leave and or looking to leave? Catherine asked that. That's a great question. I actually will have to look into that one. I'm going to make a note on that one. Yeah, I wonder if it's a certain time of the year in terms of more like the holidays, more in the beginning of the year. And I'd have to look on that, and I can get back to you on that one, Catherine. In terms of the exit interviews, couple questions for you. First one, we'll answer this first one in the chat, just answering the first one first. How many of you had an exit interview at your previous job or even previous couple of jobs? Either just put yes or no in the chat. Okay, Kristen and Yale are both with us as well. So Kristen said yes, Yale said yes, Ashley said no, I said no, Yolanda said no, Anne Marie said no, Catherine said no, and Ivana said never. And then for the people that did leave or did get these, were you asked in terms of why you were leaving or what you could have been done to keep you? For the couple people that did have that said yes. So for instance, Yale and Kristen, did that come up where they asked you about that? Kristen said yes, and Yale said yes. Okay, excellent. It actually led me staying on board. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Kristen. And I personally never had these exit interviews. I've had some conversations where people have kind of very informally asked me about it, but not necessarily, it certainly wasn't a sit down. It certainly wasn't a conversation. It was almost a kind of in passing thing during a conversation, which, yeah, I certainly felt like it should have been more of a full conversation. And that didn't necessarily come up. 3 questions that I like to think about for this. The first one is, what are the main reasons that you are leaving? And really just ask the people, and more curious, let the people know. First of all, frame it. This is in order to help the company. This won't have any effect on you going forward on your references or anything like that. This is in an effort for us to improve and us to get better, and making that really clear to them. Then a follow-up could be, what could we have done to keep you? And the answer may be, there was nothing you could have done. I was just ready for a change, but at least opening that to them. And then the third question I like, because the third question people tend to maybe answer a little bit more honestly as well. What do you think we could do to increase our company retention? So this takes it a little bit more away from just them and opens it up more. And what this does, it might allow them to share a little bit more. And people will be at times a little bit hesitant to fully share. I know when I had those couple informal conversations, I shared a couple of the reasons why I was leaving, but I didn't necessarily go into even the main ones because I was worried about the relationship. I was worried about if this will hurt me in the future, because I do need references for them for future teaching jobs. But when you open it up to more of the whole group, you are allowing them just an opportunity to share a little bit more. But I do think exit interviews are important because they're just another way for feedback and for improvement, especially when they're done the right way. And you would ask other questions in the exit interviews as well, but those ones more pertain to retention. Have effective leadership. And I went into leadership in as much detail as I could in day one, and won't really go back into it again. And if you were here for it, you certainly remember that. If not, you'll have the replay where you can go and watch it. 4 areas within the leadership, though, that specifically relate to retention. The first one is building relationships. People are more willing to stay and want to stay when they have a relationship with their supervisors. When they feel like they can go and talk to this person, that they trust this person, that they respect this person, they are more likely to, first of all, feel good in terms of their job, because relationships really do impact our overall well-being, but they're also more likely to want to stay. Appreciation is a really big one. And I'm sure many of you have heard that a lot of people will leave jobs because they don't feel appreciated. That's actually been the #1 reason going back, especially a few years back. And I put appreciation, it certainly could be a separate one, but I put it under leadership, because effective leadership appreciates its team members and recognizes them. Effective communication is key for all aspects of your job, and it is key for retention. And then empower others. With this leadership, when you're trusting people, when you're empowering them, they're going to want to be a part of it, and they're going to feel like they're growing, which I'll talk about later as well. You may have heard the saying, and there's different variations of this saying, people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. And there is a lot of truth to the saying. I was actually looking at a study yesterday, and 57%, I believe, had left a job at some point in their career because of a bad boss. So there is more to it than this, but it's certainly a major issue and major reason in terms of why people decide to leave. And it's a preventable one. Getting the right leaders in place. Number one, hiring and promoting the right leaders. And number two, developing the right leaders and giving them the opportunities to really become effective and skilled is 100% within your control as an organization. Create a healthy and purpose-driven culture. I talked about yesterday, the foundation of any culture is safety. And if people do not feel safe, they don't feel like they can share ideas, express themselves, be their true selves, then it's going to affect them. And this will create a toxic culture, and it will create people to want to look for other jobs, and rightfully so. People have a right to feel safe wherever they're working. Second one, talk about your purpose and values consistently. Purpose and values need to be shared over and over. We can't just assume people know them. Really, when you share them consistently in different ways, one-on-one conversations, in meetings, in emails, up on walls, in retreats, then they really start to stick and people start to believe it in them more and start to really embody them. The second thing with this is to connect the individual's job and what they do to the overall purpose of the company. And yesterday, I gave the example of the call workers at the University of Michigan who are responsible of raising money for the University of Michigan. And once they saw really the purpose and the meaning behind it, and we brought in letters from students it's helped, we brought in people it's helped, past students who have received scholarships because of this, it increased their rate. This one is really big, especially amongst younger people as well. Younger people want to feel like what they're doing matters. And they also want to feel like their individual job matters. So how can you convey the purpose to them in terms of the overall purpose? And how can you relate that purpose to their individual job? Appropriate and fair compensation and benefits. This one from the Pew Research, you saw it was the number one on that list. And most people, when they think about retention, one of the first things that they think about is compensation and benefits. And with the compensation, making sure that it is competitive and that it is fair based on the position that that person has, the skills that they bring to it, and their level of experience. You want to make sure that you are paying people fairly and paying people competitively based on what other similar companies are paying as well. And when people have really that financial need taken care of and they don't have that financial stress, then they're also able to perform a lot better. The financial stress is a major issue for a lot of people out there and for a lot of families. Second thing that people really value is benefits. And these benefits, number one is healthcare for themselves, for their family, and with the healthcare, mental health support. They want flexibility, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Paid time off is an important one. Paid family leave, fitness perks. Another one I didn't even put on here was things such as even meditation apps. Having a meditation app such as Headspace or Calm or Insight Timer and giving them a subscription to that is just one example. But looking to take care of their overall health. That's with the fitness, might be some type of a yoga, offering yoga as well. The meditation's a great one for that. And education, providing them potentially for further education. It might be you offer 50% for grad school for them, or even 100% depending on the situation. And the second thing, which is a part of that, is the flexibility piece and giving people the option for some type of where they work flexibility and also the hours that they work, really those two parts. And seeing, can your organization do some form of a hybrid? If you would like people to be in the office, does it need to be 5 days a week, or is there flexibility within that? Can it be 3 or 4 days a week, or on certain weeks you'll have a little bit more flexibility than others? And then the work hours, are they able to also work a little bit later in the day and at night? If, for instance, they have other responsibilities or have to, have kids at home, for instance, they might prefer to do a couple hours later at night as well. Or also in the morning as well, earlier. Any questions so far before I go on to the next one about any of the ones that I've talked about so far? And we'll also open up questions at the end. And I do want to get more of a Q&A today and a discussion at the end, because this one won't take a full hour. Okay, if anybody has any questions, feel free to come off mute or also put them in the chat like Catherine did before. And then I will ask you a question, and this one to put in the chat. Do you prefer to work in person, hybrid, or remote? And you could simply just put a 1 for in-person, you could put a 2 for hybrid, or you can put a 3 for remote in the chat in terms of which one you prefer. Kristen put 3 remote, Catherine put 2 hybrid. Let me make sure I don't miss anybody here. Okay, yep, so Catherine put remote. I'm sorry, Kristen put remote, Catherine put hybrid. Yolanda said 100% remote. Ashley said number 3, remote. And Marie said in person. So we do have some differences there. For me personally, I would like a hybrid, either hybrid or remote. I'm actually okay with either one, but if it is a hybrid, a little bit more virtual than in person, it'd maybe be in person only 1 or 2 days would I prefer, or just fully remote. But as you can see from just the feedback we've gotten from our group, it does depend. And that's really the reason why offering this flexibility is important, because people have different wants and needs with this. Effective hiring and onboarding. This one is, all these are important, but this is another big one. Making sure you're hiring people that fit the culture and have the right attitude. So yes, that you want to have them skilled and make sure they're the right fit in terms of their skills. But there are at times where those particular skills can be developed. And it's more about hiring people that are motivated and are hardworking and enthusiastic, that are positive and optimistic, that are resilient, that can work and really have high levels of emotional intelligence and can build relationships. That's also a really important thing to consider, and to make sure that, does this person, in terms of their personality, their attributes, does it fit with our culture, and will it add to our culture? And if the answer to that is no, it won't add to the culture, but they're highly skilled, then you have a decision to make. And you have to really, decide how much do you value your culture? And that's a big decision for the company. Also, if the person has leadership skills as well. Provide a well thought out onboarding process. And from certain companies do an excellent job with this. Most people, though, are not that satisfied with their onboarding process that they go through. And really just making sure that it's a collaborative effort with the HR team, with the managers, with the executives, to really create a comprehensive onboarding process that is setting people up for success. Really, with this, you're trying to get people off to a great start. You're trying to get them excited. You want to have them be optimistic about what they're doing. And it starts with that onboarding. It starts with the hiring process, and then also the onboarding process. During this onboarding process, a couple things: set expectations, make sure it's purpose-driven, really talking a lot about your core values, your purpose, your vision, incorporate that into it. Have the person build relationships with the other new employees, with their colleagues that they'll be working with their managers and supervisors, with the HR team, also with people outside of their field. If they're in one part of the division during that onboarding process, look at how can you connect them with a couple different people in other fields so that they are branching out and kind of understanding more about the whole organization. And the last part is have it get to know the person. So make it individualized about them and show an interest in them. And with this, I'll share one really interesting study that I heard. It's from a call center, which is called Wipro in India. And it's a big call center there. And they actually have, overall from people's feedback, a good culture. But they also have really high turnover rate, at times as high as 70%, which is extremely high. So they brought in a couple experts to, okay, how can we've done a couple of different things. Our retention rate, our turnover rate has stayed at that 60, 70% mark, which, very, very high. What can we do? So they brought in an expert and he conducted a study. And he split the new hires into two groups. In the first group, both the groups did the exact same onboarding process. The only difference was 1 hour at the end of it. And in that 1 hour at the end of it, group number one, they learned more about the identity. They heard from a star performer, one of the top employees. They were asked about their first impressions with Wipro. And then they were given a fleece sweatshirt with just the Wipro logo on it. That was group one. Group two, just in that second hour, they asked about the person, and it wasn't focused on the company, anything about the company. It was all about that person. And they asked questions such as, what is unique about you that leads to your happiest and best work performance? Another question they asked is, if you were lost at sea, what special skills would you bring to the situation? So really finding out more about them, brainstorming, just sharing. And then they got a company sweatshirt, a fleece sweatshirt with their name on it and also the company logo on it. The difference between those two groups was startling. It was actually 250% more likely the people in group two, the one that had the individualized, were 250% more likely to stay with that company, which is truly, a staggering number. And even at your company, if it's not quite that much, simply by individualizing it, you're able to really increase that number. And the reason why is because really it helped build that form of connection. It made them feel safe. It made them feel a part of the culture and made them feel like they were a part of it. Provide opportunities for growth and advancement. This is a big one. I was talking with a company recently who hires a little bit more foreign, and they were talking about how their employees don't really have as much opportunity for the growth and kind of what they could do for it. But it's a really big one in terms of people want to believe and really have that realistic option that they can move up within the company and that they can also grow their skills. And first, in terms of growing their skills, growing both personally and professionally, here are some suggestions for it. First one is a mentoring program. I think a mentoring program is a great way to build relationships and for helping people to improve. High levels of feedback is huge. Continuous feedback in terms of what they're doing well, constructive areas, but having that continuous feedback and creating a culture where it's open to that really allows people to improve themselves. Training on hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills specific to their job. For instance, if they're in tech, training specifically on tech might be software development. And then soft skills more in terms of the overall, which will be things such as communication skills, mindfulness, leadership, emotional intelligence, and so many others, and having really a combination of both of those. Next one, opportunities to go to conferences. So in addition to training, people being able to go out there and to learn at these different conferences and meet people as well. And then the last one's coaching. I know I'm a little biased in terms of the coaching, but it's a great way to work with someone and have this person who's skilled really be able to help you develop, help you set goals, help you gain clarity, and then help you gaining the skills and the confidence to be able to achieve it. Second part of it, provide opportunities for advancement. So have conversations with the employees, and this doesn't need to be, right away, but at some point during the person's tenure, and these are continuous conversations, talk about potential different paths that this person can take and different opportunities for advancement that they may have. And then they want to also be able to see that there's evidence out there. Have other people in similar positions moved up within the company so they can actually see, okay, this is not just what people are telling me, but this is actually what's happened. And making sure when you're hiring that you're hiring both from within and outside. Within will specifically help the retention piece. It's also a great way to recognize and to appreciate the people for their efforts and for staying with the company. Outside, the advantage to outside is it brings in new perspectives. You might also be able to find someone more highly skilled in a certain area and be able to bring them into it. But it should be a combination of the both, and might be 60% within, 40% without, whatever it might be. It's individualized to your company, but making sure you are doing both of those. Implementation plan to start to think about, even for instance, within your specific job, you might be a manager of a team of 8 to 10 people. And it's about what can you do to also increase retention within your team? Or if you're an executive in HR, might be more for the whole company perspective. Or also just starting to think about, future jobs you may have, you might need to start to think about this more. But really, you want to have a retention program. So it's not just implementing, one of these 6 things, but it's really creating a comprehensive program. And I do highly recommend having some of all 6 of these in here, and then other things as well. But what will this be composed of? I'll give you a couple of minutes right now just to jot down some of your own ideas in terms of what your retention program will be. And you can jot these down in your notebook, and then anybody that wants to share as well can share, either coming off mute or putting it in the chat as well. Ivana said, how long should one person stay in one team? And that really depends in terms of, what that team is. It could be, certain teams and certain jobs, there is a transition period. And sometimes it takes a year or 2 to really get efficient with the job. So this, it could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, could be 5 years. But I think as the person, it's just important to reflect on it, am I growing within this position? Am I happy within this position? And if those 2 things are the case, then you might want to stay a little longer. But it's really that one, I think, will be more up to the individual, but making sure that they are reflecting. And thank you, Ivana, for that question. Usman said, how to get to leadership role, keep skills or talent required. Can you expand on that a little bit more, Usman, in terms of what you're asking or the point you're making? Okay, so are you asking, is it more about your key skills or your talents for landing a leadership role? Are you kind of wondering which it is between the two more? Okay, great. I, for me, it's more about the skills. Yeah, talent is a little bit more what you're given, but skills can definitely be developed, and you can develop those skills which really come into talent. So if you want to be in a leadership role, then you need to be learning leadership skills. You need to be developing your communication skills, your emotional intelligence, and then skills specific to that job as well. It's also about building relationships and building relationships with the people above you. And that's a part of managing up, is really, you're not, sucking up to the people above you, but you're forming genuine relationships with them. And those people and the managers and the executives are asking themselves, can we see this person in a leadership position? And by working at your skills, by working at the skills I just mentioned, you're showing those people that yes, you can be in a leadership position. And then also having that conversation with people, having the conversation and letting people know that you would like to move up and to move into more of a leadership role. I think having that conversation and letting them know your intention is important as well. Catherine shared, creating strong succession plans with the entire team so they can see opportunities for advancement within their own division, what it takes to get there, and how much value their current role has to the entire team. Thank you very much, Catherine. That's really good insights there. I'm just going to unpack it a little bit. So creating a strong succession plan. So absolutely. So when, inevitably people will leave, what's the plan for when those people do leave? And then just a couple more things within that. Yeah, so letting people know what it takes to get there and how much value that they bring to their current team. I think that level of communication is really key. So thank you, Catherine. Anne Marie said, when I took on a group of 10 as a new supervisor, I sent around a questionnaire about them, their workload, and what they like, plus their pain points. Then I had one-on-ones. This was very effective. I think that's wonderful. And Anne Marie, I think that's really good leadership in terms of finding out more about them and then having those one-on-one conversations to reinforce it and to build the relationship. Anybody else in terms of what they would put in their retention program? You could either share it here in the chat, or if you'd like to come off mute, I'd love to hear from you as well. Okay, and at the end, I'm going to have a little bit more time for a Q&A and a Q&A on retention, and also if anybody has any other questions on culture or leadership as well. Catherine said, ask the hard questions. Not everyone should be in leadership. No, not everyone should, and not everybody necessarily wants to as well. But if the person doesn't have the leadership skills, then they shouldn't be in that position. They're not ready. It doesn't mean that they can't develop it. They can't, at some point down the road, that they can develop those skills and be in a position where, yes, they can and would thrive in that position. But if they don't have it, then certainly, that they shouldn't be in that role, because it will affect morale and it will affect performance. Yolanda said, my organization is working on fixing pay compression, onboarding a manager toolkit, and developing a culture of recognition. All those are great things for retention. And those are some of the things that I went over today. And it's really good that your organization is taking those steps, Yolanda. Usman said, relationship building, emotional intelligence, communication skills are the key skills for leadership roles. I absolutely agree with you, Usman. I think those are really the foundation. Relationship building, emotional intelligence, and communication skills. And really the emotional intelligence and the communication skills, those will help you build those meaningful relationships. And relationships are at the core of leadership. That's really what leadership is about. It's about being able to influence people through those meaningful relationships. So thank you for sharing that, Usman. All right, ways to work with me. I went over this a little bit the last 2 days. I wanted to touch a little bit more and also give a couple other options. For the coaching, as I mentioned before, I do internal coaching, which is more working with a business. So this is a business would hire me. I'd work with, potentially several people on within that business, and both individually and group. But it's more finding out their needs and then submitting a proposal and really seeing, how I can best serve them there. And if you're in an HR role or anything like that and would like to talk to me about it, I would definitely love to talk to you and see how I can really be a service and to help your company grow. The second and the third one are individual. So these are one-on-one with people outside of their business. And the first one is leadership coaching. It's a 5-month coaching program, 13 total sessions. The first session really about analyzing where you're at, creating goals, and then developing a plan. We do also a EQI 2.0. Usman was mentioning the emotional intelligence piece. EQI 2.0 is an emotional intelligence assessment. So it measures you in 15 different areas. And then we take the results from this and also look for how we can use it to improve your leadership. And it's a combination of a few of the sessions are more set in terms of I'm setting the content or the plan, but the majority, especially as we get into it, is set by the client, and it's set ahead of time based on what's most important for them to really focus on right now. It's really a combination of helping them reach those goals and then also develop their skills. The high performance coaching is 4 months, so it's slightly shorter, similar format, but the main focuses are on mindset, habits, productivity, and relationships. But again, it's very, very much individualized to each individual person. In terms of the pricing, the internal coaching, that will depend on the services of the company, and that one is very much individual and will need to be worked on. The leadership coaching is normally $3,950, and right now I'm doing it for $2,950. So really, it's the only time this year that I'll offer this big of a discount. And I'm just going to do that until April 4th. So another just over a week. And then the high performance coaching is usually $3,500, but I'm doing it right now for $2,500. So both of these are really major discounts, especially for the people in this webinar. The online courses, if you don't want to commit to the coaching and you want something, not as expensive as well, Mindful Leadership Coaching focuses on 5 core competencies of mindful leadership, and the high performance focuses on 5 areas that will affect your performance both in your personal and professional life. And those courses are made up of both videos and Word document and PDFs. And the PDFs are also editable as well. And if you go to my website, which is Culture Through Leadership, one of the sections is courses, and you can buy those both individually and as a group. Other ways is keynote speeches and workshops, similar to what we're doing today and what we've done the last 2 days, in more of a presentation in terms of keynote speech or a workshop within the organization or within their leadership team. And here are 6 ones that I offer. So the first one's on mindset and habits. The second one's on becoming a mindful leader, which is probably the one that I've done the most so far. Mindfulness at work. And then the 3 that we did these 3 days are very similar to it. So the high impact leadership, the maximize your retention, and the build a thriving culture. And again, if you'd like me to come in and to work with your organization and to do these workshops, I'd be happy to have a discussion with you. Here's a testimonial just in terms of one testimonial, and you can see more on the website as well. I'll let you read this this to yourself. I won't necessarily read this one out loud. And there's also a results page on my website as well, in terms of that has additional testimonials and just results from the people that have done it. And really from both of those programs, from the leadership coaching and the high performance, I've been really happy in terms of the results that the clients have been able to achieve. And it's because of really their commitment and their work at it. Here's contact information. First one is my website, which I mentioned. You can see more about the coaching, the speaking, the courses, and also the testimonials. Second one is my email, and third one's my LinkedIn. If you like, you can take a screenshot of this. If you are on LinkedIn, I definitely like to connect with you as well. And then questions that anybody has in terms of what I went over today with retention, or questions about either the other two topics, culture or the leadership, or also the different offerings that I have as well. Can you share the content framework of High Performance Accelerator, the online course? Sure. So let me just pull that up real quick. So here's here's the website right here. If you clicked on the courses pages right here at the top, first one's Mindful Leadership Academy. Set one is High Performance Accelerator. So these are the 5 areas that we're focusing on with it. Our mindset. The second one is habits and energy level. The third one is productivity. The fourth one is stress management. And the fifth one is leadership. And in each one of these modules, there are videos, and then there are documents for it. But really the goal is to help you raise your level of performance for both the professional and the personal, because those two are very much entwined. It's not, if you're improving such as, being able to, your mindset will help you in all areas of your life. Welcome. You're welcome, Usman. Any other questions? We still have a few minutes here as well. So I see it's 54. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to go over them. You're welcome, Catherine. I appreciate your insights and questions as well. If you don't have any questions right now, you can certainly follow up with me. You have my email. Contact me on LinkedIn as well, and I'd be happy to answer your questions that might come later on. And I will be sending out the replays of all 3 presentations. Thank you for that, Usman, for your comment right there. All right, everyone, this concludes day 3. I enjoyed having you here and look forward to really staying in touch with you going forward. And like I said, please reach out to me if I can ever support you.